are the main, like, not the main differences between two models? This is what I wanted to ask. But you mentioned that sometimes you use different models from GPT-1. So could you describe, like, how you decide on which model is best for your task?
Okay, you mean to like only models inside of OpenAI or like models
No, no,
at all?
no. Like all the market, yeah.
Okay, okay. So, well, for now, for a long time, like GPT-4 is like most intelligent model, and it takes that leadership for basically already a year. So yeah, so basically in many applications we just using that GPT-4 and that all, and not thinking about some advanced. It's just easy to implement. It have easy to use API, and it's basically good in at many tasks. But we can use some open source model in some cases when we need, for example, privacy, when we don't want
Mm-hmm.
to send our data somewhere to the cloud, but we want to our data to stay with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's the case. Also, also for example, for that cases with robotics, with our let's say Mars rover or some another robots that could be should be outside of internet, so it need to be brain like inside of our computer. Uh, Again, also, well, also there's some applications that when our local models could be better than GPT-4. Um, Basically, GPT-4 is good for everything. You know, it's like common knowledge tool. It's good in programming. It's good in some chatting with people. Good in many tasks, but open source, open source model, even when they are not so intelligent, they could be fine-tuned or trained in some particular tasks, and in that tasks could be even better than GPT-4 sometimes, or at least comparable, while they are still much smaller models that needs like much less, GPU to run or something like that. So yes, there could be some cases that when our local model, could program better.
Where did
Also,
you apply them? If you did, like, what are some projects you use them in?
yes, as I said, in that robot, that running robot in
Mm.
yes, my Raspberry
Mm-hmm.
Pi, and I also going to test them with that agents to see if that some local model, some expert on coding will be better than GPT-4. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I will do it soon.
Okay,
so
okay.
so yes, and also costs basically. When we're using that, for example, agents, that is very costly because they doing a lot of consequent requests to OpenAI and with really long context. So it's generate huge costs basically. Or for example, when we have some chatbot that communicates with many different people, it could be also costly. So maybe sometimes our local LLM will save our money, and yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. You mentioned vector databases a lot. Why are they used with artificial intelligence, and what are their advantages? And yeah, um, could you tell
Okay,
more about them? Mm-hmm.
sure, sure. So vector like basis, vector search engines is the correct name. Used for mostly building some RAG application or retrieval augmented generation. When we find in our knowledge base saved on some database appropriate pieces of our knowledge that we need to insert to the context of our model to make it generate better responses. So um, So yes, so for example, user asking about, let's say, opening time of our shop, and our model will first search similar records in our vector data in our database using vector search engine, and find few pieces of informations in that will insert to our context of our chatbot, which will find that our opening hours inside of one of that responses. So yes, basically it's used for retrieving some information efficient way. Yes, but it's like also all the science. It's a lot of complicated ways to retrieve that, to check if that information that we retrieved are really fitted to that context, or it's just some random stuff that accidentally get found. So yes, there's a lot of tools like rankers, for example, that could choose better better responses from our finding results. Different ways to make architecture of search. So yes, it's also big field that only Rax is like all the science.
Sounds interesting and a lot to learn.